In the 20th century, there were two kinds of artists. There were artists, and then there was Keith Haring.
Piece of chalk, the young man from Kutztown, Pennsylvania, draws a picture.
They come out fast, but, it's a fast world.
Born May 4th, 1958, Keith Haring is well known for being a pop artist that wasn't afraid to stray and move away from the status quo of art. Instead of grand masterpieces and historical-like work, we got cartoony and childish drawings of babies, dogs, this thing. Despite his optimistic and more open perspective, Keith's art bleeds his own beliefs, his life, and what defines him, especially being gay. In one of his journals, he famously wrote, "I'm glad I'm different. I'm proud to be gay. I'm proud to have friends and lovers of every colors." Between his art being a hit internationally, his work influencing and benefiting millions of LGBT citizens, including gay men during the AIDS crisis, and his idea of art rebelling against the norm, Keith Haring may be considered one of the most influential and most important queer artists of all time. Despite his passing in 1990 due to AIDS, the 21st century has not dropped the theme of queer artists expressing rebellion at all. Nowadays, more LGBT artists are still producing their own content and expressing their own feelings of being closeted, being repressed of their identity, and wanting to rebel to live their honest self. Out of those, there's two pieces of art that I want to highlight and talk about, specifically two manga stories that talk about not only being queer, but coming to terms with being queer, pushing against the norms holding you down, and rebelling against everything to be yourself. Those two manga are Our Dreams at Dusk and Boys Run the Riot. Both mangas, written by open LGBT mangakas Keito Gaku and Yuki Kamatani, not only tell tales of queer teenagers adapting to their identity and the people around them, but how the protagonists rebel in their own sense. The mangakas use their visual art and talent to show how these two rebel and become their true self. The first series I want to start with is Our Dreams at Dusk, which explores not only the central character, a gay man named Tatsuku, but also a community of queer people he meets along the way. Our Dreams at Dusk does not hold any punches in the first two chapters, greeting the protagonist with slurs, internalized homophobia, thoughts of suicide, bullying, etc., only for Tatsuku to be greeted by someone-san who listens but never asks. It is there he confesses he is gay and is brought to a group with other LGBT people. Throughout the story, we explore a young teen explore his gender and cross-dresses to find out who he is, a lesbian couple getting ready to marry, an older gay guy with a partner dying of old age, and a bisexual man finding out his feelings for Tatsuku. Instead of using words, Kamatani expresses the characters' feelings and what they like via art and imagery. Each time a character has a moment relating to being queer or their experience, Kamatani captures it with beautiful imagery and displays of art to show the passion and love behind it. Kamatani uses the vibrant images and visuals to show what it means to be LGBT or queer. It means to be vibrant, it means to be flexible, and at times, out of body. Take, for example, in Chapter 3, where after seeing a same-sex couple, Tatsuku is shown with glass shattering out of his chest. This is meant to symbolize not only the heteronormative idea of couples that he's been used to, but to show the joy and shock of finally seeing someone like him, or how Misora's journey about his gender and his expression can be symbolized through Goldfish, as although he is young, struggles to find his identity and his expression as he grows older. However, one of the best uses of imagery is the UFO and the character of Tsubaki. Throughout the story, specifically in Chapter 3, Tsubaki is presented as a character who struggles with his sexuality, so much that he either resorts to saying slurs or just lashing out. Instead of Kamatani presenting it as something that enrages him, it is shown as something that confuses him, and uses the UFO to symbolize this aspect of confusion. Let's be honest, finding out our sexuality and gender is not as easy as others make it out to be. It can make us confused, angry, and at sometimes sad. Tsubaki goes through these steps, from first realizing, then getting mad, and then breaking to the pressure that he is, indeed, not straight. And through his journey, he is accompanied by UFOs, showcasing his strange experiences with life. Our Dream at Dusk's use of visual storytelling is not just limited to art, as characters are also seen as visual stories themselves, specifically in the character of Someone-san. Throughout the story, someone-san is someone who listens, but never asks, and when people meet them, they are either seen throwing themselves off a balcony, only to reappear. I feel with this, kamatani symbolizes the idea of rebirth, as someone falls off, then reappears, showing how being queer doesn't kill you, but rather makes you feel more alive for being yourself. This is especially seen when they bond with Chaiko, who after meeting him and his partner, struggles with their identity. It is then that someone decides they do not want to be labeled or perceived by any name, but only as someone-san. Someone is a character not presented by words or their statements, but by their presence and the attitude they bring to the environment and what they mean to the residents of the house. According to Tsuku, a cloud, although ungrabbable, becomes more clear the more you look at it, or specifically, someone. I could end this segment here, but I want to talk about one scene that really brought me to tears, one scene that made me sob, and the only thing that stopped me from crying really loud in the middle of the night was finding out Bakugo died, but apparently that's wrong, and that was the final chapter in Chaiko. Chaiko, throughout the story, may have not had much visual storytelling, but in the final chapter, we see him reunite with his partner, Ilya-san, and in his partner's dying moments, Chaiko is lifted away, and the two men hold each other, just saying, being together, and one last line, Ilya saying, "I'm so glad to have spent my life with you." Despite this scene not being for so long, I wanted to highlight it because I feel it wraps up the story with what Kamatani wanted this story to feel like. A journey through queerness. Explore its joy, its rough times, its sad times, but the love all throughout regardless of age, gender, or circumstances, and that our dreams as queer people, our dreams to love freely and be who we are, never end. The second manga for this video that emphasizes the power of art is Boys Run the Riot. Published in Weekly Young magazine and then Comic Dates by Kodansha in 2020, Keito Gaku explores the story of Ryo Watari, who has a passion for art, a passion to create street fashion, and importantly, a passion to be himself, a trans man. Ryo, along with fellow reject Sato Jin, a no-good troublemaker not understood, and the camera enthusiast bullied for his hobby Itsuka Toto, work together with friends and create clothes with the fashion name Boys Run the Riot, the namesake of the manga. The manga Boys Run the Riot right off the bat shows the artistic value in the characters and how much they find passion in designing shirts and fashion clothes made from said passion. Throughout the manga, Boys Run the Riot use visual elements of clothing and design to signal the rebellion of the nails that must be hammered down. Clothes in the story are not meant to be glamorous or pompous, but a middle finger, one to stick to the society that puts Jin down for being a misfit, and Ryo for being trans. Fashion is art, and fashion to them is their voice. Fashion to them is their pride, and fashion to them is their way out of getting hammered down for being a nail that sticks out. This is best shown through Ryo, the protagonist, as in the beginning chapters, he is always wearing the girl's uniform, always shy, and never standing out in being himself. However, through the fashion, he becomes himself both presenting-wise and confidence-wise, being able to stand up for his right to exist, for his right to be himself, and this is best emphasized in chapter 21. After talking with his crush, he realized he doesn't tell her anything. Heck, he doesn't tell anyone anything. The idea that he can't be himself, he can't share who he is, and that he is afraid of being himself, hurts him. It is there and that he does something. Ryo returns to school, ready to be himself. It is in chapter 21 where he rips his uniform off and shows his art, his shirt, that shows who he is. He rips the clothes that restrain him and shows the class and the world who he is through his clothes, his own art. This scene captures why Boys Run the Riot is so powerful in showing the value of queer art. Through Ryo's art, he is able to show what he is, Jin and Toto want, to rebel, especially for a trans man in a society that demonizes queerness in any sense. Luckily for Boys Run the Riot, Ryo is not the only character that is queer and used their platform to make a statement, as another person, Wing, or Tsubasa, is also part of the story. Wing is a YouTube popular in the LGBTQ community that gives Boys Run the Riot the platform and boosts their sales. After a fateful call with Ryo, Tsubasa was caught sleeping with a woman. This automatically led to backlash, as people thought Wing made it up and that they were a fraud, simply because they didn't fit into the definition of being queer. Even Tsubasa admits this, realizing what they don't know and that they don't know who they are. However, Gaku makes sure to affirm this is their design. Wing presents and is seen AMAB, assigned male at birth, but also is presenting feminine, obscuring and confusing their gender to the audience until the reveal. This is also emphasized with what Boys Run the Riot did after their apology video, in which they state they are figuring out their gender. They release this shirt and stand in support of Wing. Through this, it shows how the group, as artists, know what it's like to be ostracized, to be pushed aside for being different. Even in the LGBTQ community, Wing didn't fit in and it was ostracized, and this shirt is meant to symbolize that Boys Run the Riot isn't a brand for money, but to send a message through art. From looking at this shirt, it's obvious that no matter what others say, they lift each other up, and even if the followers drop, no one can tell them who they are. They didn't make this through a statement, they made a fashion statement through art. Though it only ran for 37 chapters, 14 more than Our Dreams at Dusk, Boys Run the Riot is still a great read for what it is. The characters are all well done, and you can feel their desire to break free from the mold society puts them in via their art, or for Jin, his farts. For Rio, of course, is the best thing considering he is the protagonist because he demonstrates the value of not only fashion, but queer art. This is especially emphasized with the fact that the mangaka, Keito Gakko, is a trans man himself. In the interview with Kodansha at the end of Volume 1, he states how Boys Run the Riot draws from his own experiences in life, and how he uses fashion and art to show how Rio expresses his individuality, even stating how graffiti is meant to show Rio's personal growth. He even states that a message he wants to convey to trans men reading this is that although it is hard and it might be difficult, find a reason to keep going, and pour your heart into it just like Rio, and just like what Gaku does with his art, he made it. This shows that the reader, even though they might feel trapped and closeted, they are not alone at all, and you gotta show the world your art not only as a queer person, but as an artist of your own merit, because it is that art, the art that rebels against norms and pressures, is the one that starts the riot. After discussing and analyzing both manga individually, I want to reroute to when I talked about Keith Haring. What does Keith Haring have to do with these two mangas from 20 years after his time? Well, it's not a trick question. Art. Keith Haring was known to do art in the weirdest and unconventional way possible, via murals on the court, walls, anywhere he wanted, and better yet, his art was not the usual, as it was just childish. It was pop. It was something that makes people stop and stare, and that's what both of these mangas do. Both Our Dreams at Dusk and Boys Run the Riot uses their art to get people to stop what they're doing and look. They want to know, be it their mangaka or the manga, they have something to say, and you're gonna hear it whether you like the message or not. All three are artists that were queer, and they were proud of it. Our Dreams at Dusk uses art to show the struggles of being LGBTQ in a society that doesn't want that, and how the characters visually view their identity. Boys Run the Riot uses art as a means to help the characters, especially their LGBTQ characters, a way to speak up and fight the hammer that wants to nail them down, and Keith Haring wanted to make art to help fight racism, drugs, and to the injustices against his queer community. He drew for ACT UP, for safe sex, and most importantly, this image. What are you looking at? Is this unfinished painting, you may ask? That's what it's called, the unfinished painting. And if you don't know what that means, it was 1988 and Haring was diagnosed with AIDS, and despite this, he continued to paint and painted this in 1989, and 1 year later, he passed away. This painting is meant to symbolize the lives of gay men, men who had their life cut short, men who could never live a full life, and unfortunately, like Haring, had it cut short due to the AIDS complications. This painting is something that shows the pain of LGBT people, and more specifically, the pain we all go through, the pain Tasuku went through, the pain Rio went through, and the pain Keith Haring and his fellow gay men received while in the AIDS crisis. And pain is awful, we all have some queer trauma within us, and the homophobia and transphobia, but what is the meaning of through this? Why is this so important? I think it's simple. Through pain, our art and dreams shine the most. When Keith Haring got diagnosed with AIDS, he didn't drop the pen and died. He kept pushing on and making art until he died, making something he wanted to achieve, something that would last beyond his lifetime. And what he did last long, and no better is it evident than the many queer people that also picked up their pens, their art supplies and everything and started to create. And this is best evident in the two manga, Boys Run the Riot and Our Dreams at Dusk. Both mangas use art as a way to show that while queer people go through pain and that we may suffer, we don't give up and roll over. We push back and strive. For Tsuku, it's pushing away the homophobia around him and finding a community that will love him and support him, and find a community that pushes through their pain together. For Ryo, it's rejecting that notion that he has to conform and instead be himself and create what he wants and wear what he wants. Through his fashion and his art, he is able to find friends. He is able to be brave and be himself through it all and all. So the message both of these mangas tell you through their art, and the same one Keith Haring told 30 years ago, no matter how bleak things get, no matter how tough it looks, no matter what guns, diseases, or pain we queer folk feel, no matter what law or bill tries to stop us, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, it is our dreams that run the riot. Okay, I am very sorry this is late, but Happy New Year. It should be New Year unless we were on another planet. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really glad I got to make another queer video. Make sure to follow my Twitter, follow my Instagram, follow my TikTok, which I'm going to focus more on queer stuff there, as well as also just if you can donate to my Ko-fi, that'd be appreciative. And if you have any other queer manga or LGBTQ books, please let me know down below. I definitely need to hear some, and I would always be willing to try new things. So thank you so much for watching.